All right, and we are live. So, welcome everyone. My name is Felipe from the Instantly team. I'm here with the great Ken Volk from one of the most successful agencies out there. Um, Ken, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We'll be covering a few questions, so you can ask all of your questions live, and we'll be happy to answer them. And also, we will be reviewing a few of our features, just 30 seconds before everyone joins in. And yeah, we will just jump straight in. So just checking here, making sure that everyone joins in and we can start. But Ken, in the meantime, for those who don't know you, like of course a lot of our community members know you, but maybe you want to do a quick intro about yourself, about your agency.
Yeah, totally. And thanks for having me. Always a pleasure jumping on with you guys. But yeah, just quick background. So I've always been an entrepreneur. So I started my own retail company back in '09. That was back in Montana, where I'm originally from, the Wild West. And so it was a convenience store, brick and mortar. But long story short, I had it for almost a decade. Relocated it, expanded it, and then I was able to exit, which was great, and gave me the space to kind of hang and go to places you can't quite go now, like China and Russia and Israel and other places. And so after that, I became director of biz dev for a company called SourcePad, where we did high ticket web dev. So really tough thing to sell, particularly with cold email. But it was funny. The CEO at the time, who was just this brilliant guy, he's Ivy League educated rocket scientist, and he's a career entrepreneur. So he's raised 30 million, 3 exits. He's like, we're gonna run this up with cold email. And I'm given my background, I'm like, wait, that doesn't work. And he's like, no, it's gonna work, and you're gonna figure it out. And so anyway, long story short, we figured it out. We did hundreds of thousands a year just from email, and early last year we were acquired actually as well. And so I thought, man, if cold email can work in a space like that, where everyone wants to make you a website, a mobile app, it can work anywhere. So I got the entrepreneur bug again. I formed my company Auto Up right away, and so it's been great. We've been able to do this for companies that have raised over billions so far. So we've been kind of flying with it, but really fun, and glad to be on with you guys as always.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that quick intro. So yeah, yeah, I see already people joining in. So yeah, thank you so much again, guys, for tuning in. So yeah, let's jump straight in. So Ken, let's jump into trends. So what do you see working right now in the space? Do you see anything new? Anything that you see like it's working? Like because these things are changing constantly. So what do you see in the cold email space changing right now?
Yeah, well, I think the big trends are leaning towards AI, right? And I think everyone's trying to write good creative prompts. They're using GPT to even write emails, just sections of emails, where I think some of the common use cases are, hey, you saw you do XYZ, or you sell to XYZ, and things like that. And that tends to be okay. We've actually had mixed results with some of that. Our use cases with GPT have really been in terms of list building, segmentation, that not so much writing. But I do think what's working is what's always works, and that's good offers, packaged well, written well. I think sticking to the fundamentals is always a good play. And so writing short, snappy emails, really writing emails that people want to reply to, though, right? And I think
Yeah.
there's lots of nuance and ways that you can do that. But just as an example, people will say you always got to do plain text, right? Always do plain text emails. But we've actually found that sometimes having a signature with some degree of styling, and sometimes a photo, and we've user tested this, by the way, people oftentimes are more inclined to want to reply to that and feel more like it's a real person, right? And so again, lots of nuances, but I think whatever the offer is, or however you're spinning something up, the key is really to just write something and position it that you yourself might conceivably reply to as well. So still, the fundamentals I think will always win out, no matter how many slick AI tricks come to bear.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. And by the way, guys, we are answering your questions live. So this is a great chance to ask Ken about anything that you think might help you perform better with your campaigns. So Ken, by the way, is a very, very experienced cold email user. He has helped multi-million-dollar companies to scale their cold email infrastructure. So yeah, and actually we're already seeing a few questions in. So um, let me, so Ariel is asking if I have a list of cold emails and scale 50 outbound emails a day. What if someone who has added to that list joins or cite from another source? Can we have a spreadsheet that gets auto updated? So I guess Ariel's question is about like how to manage like leads from different sources. So I don't know, Ken, like, do you have anything to add about that? Because basically, yeah, they just want to make sure they are not emailing the same people. I guess like the block list is a good way to do it, but I don't know. Do you have any other suggestion about it?
Yeah, the block list works, and I think that Instantly will auto dedupe across campaigns, right? So it auto blocks from that perspective. So potentially, if people have different sources, they can have different campaigns that align from a source. So one could be, Apollo, Zoom Info, Seamless, whatever, right? But the other thing we like to do too is we just set up a quick zap using Zapier, where if somebody unsubscribes, we'll just drop we can do it a couple ways depending on the client and how they want to function. But we can mark a lead is not interested within Instantly's backend in the Unibox, and then Matt can kick the lead to the block list, and then also the client can just have access to the block list, just add either the domain or the individual email address, and then it talks to Instantly, and then they never get subsequent outreach. So lots of ways to do it. I think the key is just whatever, if it's client facing, make them happy, make it easy and as frictionless as possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess at the end of the day, the clients, they just want to see results. So, yeah. So, okay, another question is, so what are your thoughts in contrast to having 2 emails per domain and having multiple domains? Is it okay to have 2 email per subdomain so that we can create maybe 2, 3 subdomains? So I guess this person is trying to optimize the amount of email accounts per domain, and maybe they're trying to play around with the subdomains. Like, what do you think about that?
Haven't tried it. I don't, as a rule, we try to stay away from subdomains. We've heard bad things, have not candidly tested them. So I can't speak for, with hard data to back that up. I do know there's enough people in the space who I respect a lot that have tested, have not had good outcomes. So we've always stayed away. But the other thing is that, if you do look at just what I think are best practices, and so for perspective, what we'll do, we'll create, usually we start people with 10 domains, 2 email addresses per domain, and that just tends to work. So our MO is, let's not deviate from like a proven and successful way of getting after it. So I would encourage people just to sort of follow what the best practices are, without getting too cute with the subdomains. Potentially there can be issues there.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. And we have another question from Steve from YouTube. By the way, we're live streaming both on our Facebook group and on YouTube. So we're answering your questions in both these places. And yeah, Steve is asking, what about links? So in terms of links, I think this is like the eternal debate. Like, should we add links, unsubscribe links or not? Like, what are your thoughts about it? I remember like last time you went live, you were sharing like some great experiences, like including links in the signature. Yeah, like what do you have anything to add about like links, unsubscribe links, and so on?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting debate, I think, because what we often do, and not always, we just sort of provide, I think, the high level, thought leadership to clients. Clients then get to sort of choose their own path and own a lot of the process. But one of what you're talking about is where we use a ton of spin tags into the footer. But it reads, it's like a disclaimer style footer, because no one reads those disclaimers, right? And then if you have the link which says email preferences, where you can unsubscribe, you can do it that way. So you're throwing in a bunch of spin tags, you're tricking the ESPs, you're being can spam compliant that way as well, which is great. But then I think if you go back to it, a lot of the guys who will use plain text or just the text-based opt-out rather, it's interesting. most of these guys are going to tell you you have to follow up, and they're going to say, follow up, follow up, follow up. Well, if you get the text-based opt-out, it's so much easier to people to opt out, right? And you're surrendering those nice follow-ups that they think are so valuable. So, it depends on the offer, it depends on the audience, right? I think that looking at, we will leverage both strategies, and we'll have this conversation with every client that we have about, okay, here are the pros and cons to this, pros and cons to that. What do you want to do? Again, we'd let them sort of own this and drive the boat on a lot. But I do think, yeah, it's not a hard and fast rule that one approach is better than the other, but they definitely come with their trade-offs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So this guru is asking, how effective do you find using personal first line openers?
Depends how good they are, I guess, right? I think the challenge with, like, if you use GPT, one of the disadvantages, or one of the drawbacks we saw with GPT, was it would format things just not well. Like, so we would call out certain job titles that companies could sell to, for example. And even in our prompts where we said we wanted all these outputs to be lowercase, they didn't always fix it. So then we found that we're writing app script on top of that within Google Sheets, and it just got really muddy and it didn't look good. And again, I think if you go back to sending emails people want to reply to, they have to like read well. In theory, you're reaching out to people who are smart, and if they see weird styling things or grammatical errors, it's, you're not helping yourself, right? So one thing that just goes back to the older sort of pre GPT boom is like being able to call out based on what the person does or their job title, across the board. So if you're writing to directors of business development, you could say like, hey, saw you had a BD, something where it's, you present it in a light way. That's still got a pretty, assumptive and personalized feel to it. But again, it only matters. It only works, I think, if these things are well written, and if the relevancy is there, and if the offer is there. If the offer's not there, it doesn't matter much.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And in terms of lead sourcing, so what are you currently using? So like what are some of the great places that you're using right now to find databases?
Yeah, so it definitely depends on audience, of course, right? But I think Apollo is always an easy place to start. It's a good B2B source. But from there, LinkedIn Sales Navigator is great. So we like to start with like Find Email, then we'll run waterfall enrichment with EvaBoot, and we can, go down the line with different sources there. But if you're looking at like B2B SaaS, Crunchbase is great. We do use ZoomInfo as well. Clay is really interesting. Clay can do a lot of fun things. So Clay was something we've been leaning into more and more. In certain cases, you have audiences that just aren't in these traditional B2B intelligence directories. And so sometimes you have to, use Instant Data Scraper or scrape it yourself or build your own scraper. And so we've been able to do that. A good call out would be, we try to find solar installers. We've got a pretty big client in the solar space, one of the largest manufacturers in the world. And they wanted to target US solar installers. You can't quite find those guys in Apollo, and there isn't a clean way to do that in LinkedIn. And so we found some directories that had exactly what we wanted. Those guys were selling the directories for, 5 figures and up. It was not cheap, but our team was able to just build a scraper. And we scraped it. So being able to do that is always great and always super helpful.
Yeah, no, that sounds fantastic. And right now, have you seen any changes in terms of sending volume? Because we have seen like some people in the cold email community mentioning that maybe it's time to back off a little bit in terms of sending limits, just to be sure that you are landing on the inbox folder. So some people are saying that maybe like sticking back to the 30 to 50 emails per email account should be like a good practice. Like, what are you seeing right now in terms of sending limits?
I'm probably the bad guy to ask on that, just because we've always kept it deliberately conservative to that. Like the most we would ever send, is like 30. And oftentimes we'll spin up so many addresses that we like to get that send volume even more diluted, just to keep things safe. So yeah, I think we're still okay with where we're at, but we've taken that, that more conservative approach, before even beginning, which, even that, comes with its drawbacks. It does cost more. You have to have more emails, more domains, but we think the investment's worth it. But from where we're at, high 20s, and 30 is sort of a ceiling. We haven't actually seen any jump or any drop from that yet, but it's definitely something we watch closely for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And let's talk maybe a bit about like your success story. So what do you think, I mean, what maybe, yeah, like let's start from there. So what will be some success stories that you can share with some of those that are, starting their own agencies right now, to motivate them maybe, to keep hustling, and like what are some of the things that you're proud of that maybe you can share with friends or with other marketing colleagues?
Yeah, I think, just, really high level. I think we've been able to book calls with maybe 20% of the Fortune 100 at this point for our clients.
Oh,
I think
wow.
that's a testament, not just, yeah, okay, I guess we're good at what we do, of course, but we have great clients and they have great offers, and that's been super helpful. But like one example, we have clients on every continent, on which people live, or we've had them, which is very neat. But we have one in the UK where I'll just mention them. They're FinMile, last mile logistics company, e-cargo bikes. So they do, they're faster, they're greener, and they're cheaper. That's their offer, and it's an awesome offer.
Yeah.
And people care about sustainability. But they got a really nice deal from our outreach that pays them, about 30 grand a month. And then there's been other companies where I think as we've evolved, it was oftentimes we're working with startups, and we still very much part of our bread and butter, but we're helping companies raise money, and we've got some really really good lists, and we obviously leveraging Instantly to do mass outreach. There's nothing that I would rather do than help with that for people that want to raise money and that want to raise capital, particularly if they've already done it. We can get, on average, it seems 25 positive replies a week for the few that we've been doing this for. So that's something that's a fun thing to look at. And then the other thing too, again, everyone's thinks that B2B SaaS is sexy, and I get it, and it is, and that's fine. But we're also looking more towards like these like you know, blue collar, unsexy, traditional, old school types of industries where the offer, the offers there. These guys have been doing it for a long time, and then also private equity. Those guys need help with deal sourcing, and there's a lot of interesting things that can be done on that. So yeah, I mean, I think like just looking at like making our offer just more malleable and thinking and looking in pockets where other people don't, that's good, because I think there's a lot of people out there that'll tell you have to start here, or even like chiropractors. How many
Yeah.
you look online, everyone's like, here's how you target these guys. Well, they're actually hard to get. So I think it's just creatively looking at different niches and being able to unearth those. That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And in terms of things that you see that people are doing, just, I mean, maybe not wrong in general, but where you see they could be doing better. Yeah. What are those things that you wish people knew more about? Could be like maybe in terms of sending volume, maybe in copy. Like what I see, for example, a lot is the copy. Like I feel like that's the number one thing that people should work more on. But what are some of those things that you feel like people should like focus more on?
I'm with you. I think you're exactly right. To me, it's copy, because I will do consulting for agency owners and just companies too. We'll just do one-off looks, buy an hour of my time, whatever. All happy to do that. And for the most part, a lot of guys do get the fundamentals right. That's, I think, a credit to Instantly, because your community is like really well documented. Okay, send this amount over this structure, this cadence, and so forth. But yeah, it's that copy where guys will write whole scale, like novels almost, like just walls of text. And I look at that and I think, I wouldn't reply to that. And I tell them that. And the other thing too, it's the frequency. And I think there are these narratives out there from sales directors that these sort of supposed gurus will tell you, well, you have to follow up 15 times. Well, it doesn't quite apply with cold email. It's like the same idea that like on day
Yeah.
9, you have to view their LinkedIn profile. Well, that doesn't work, right? I tell people, like, especially if the ICP is big, get these guys quick and move on. No more than 3 touches, keep moving, because the more that you spend following up, you're bleeding opportunity cost. So write well, and then, move quicker. Those are, I think, the two biggest points where I see just long emails over long sequences, and that's not a great way to do this for the most part.
Yeah. No, I completely appreciate. I completely agree with you on that one. Yeah. And let's see some more questions. So someone is asking, what is your agency, Ken? Maybe you can give them yourself your
Yeah.
URL. I think it's autoup.io.
Yeah, autoup.io. I don't know if I can chat or I can type it in here.
You should be
I
able
can't see
to.
questions.
No,
I
we will
can't
put it
see.
down in the comments.
Yeah, all good,
Yeah,
but there it is.
that's right. Yeah. No worries. We'll share it later.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah. So what about, Jim is asking, what about targeting other niches, like for example, software, like HR software, B2B? So I guess Jim's question is towards like niches. So what niches do you see like are the hardest nowadays, and which ones are like high converting, or you see like it's easier to step in? Yeah.
I think cybersecurity is really hard. I think that if you're targeting people in the MSP space, there's anything that's highly technical where maybe they don't have a huge ICP. The truth is, you've got a lot of people, a lot of companies over the past several years when we had zero interest rates, we got a lot of money. And I don't know that equates to product market fit. I think a lot of these guys now are realizing that painfully. I think investors are realizing it painfully. But I think that there's been a ton of investment made in like just, that sort of space as an example. And it's really difficult. I think there's a ton of saturation. Other points of saturation would be anything that's like overly commoditized or service based, like web development, web design, SEO. You've got to have some pretty compelling case studies, some really good social proof to do well with that stuff. It's just the barrier. Anything too where the barrier of entry is just quite low, makes it harder, right?
Yeah.
So being able to lean into these examples of big social proof, which is, by the way, one aspect where I tell people that sometimes you should break the rules with respect to copy. Usually I tell people like write empathetically, always write about the prospects, keep them short. Sometimes it's okay to write longer though, if it means that you can include, your own bona fides, your own case studies. Hey, we've worked with these logos. Do that because most people haven't, right? And that itself is a pattern interruption. And ultimately, I think that this stuff wins because people think that you can do the job you say you can do, right? So not including that, even at the expense of extra characters, usually that's a mistake. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that answers the question. There's a lot that's getting saturated. I think with Instantly too. Instantly is this rocket ship where people are learning the secret. Like cold email is a thing, you can do it, and so yeah, it's more important now than ever, I think, to be really discerning, to write really well, and to do this properly.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So let me see any more questions. Second. So Bisgood is asking again, if you can give us an example of a great offer for selling SaaS software. So I guess maybe he might need like a few tips about like copy, or what are some of those tips that could make his campaign stand out for SaaS?
Yeah, well, it depends on what the SaaS does, but let's say the SaaS has some really measurable case studies or outcomes where it can save you 60% of your operating expenses over the year. That would be huge, right? So I think leaning into a stat like that where you can put a number behind it where it's measurable, that's big. The other thing too is just offering a trial. You give something away. Like anything that any email that you send should have some degree of value. And so the idea that you can just give something, well, that's inherently valuable, right? And so I would almost approach that with like a 1-2 punch where it's like, you can just say a quick teaser in email one. Hey, we do this. We reduce something by 60% or whatever. And then your CTA can be, mind if I send over more info? Something really light where it's like, you're not asking for a call. You're just saying, can I send you something? You can look at it or not, whatever, right? And then on email too, what you can do, you can send it anyway, right? So that's like your excuse. And we've actually done that sometimes with SaaS, sometimes with other things, where it's email one is mind if I send you something, email two, you just send it regardless. Hey, just sending it over anyway in case it might be relevant. Um, Again, you're not asking for a call in that case. And then on the third email, if you want to go to a third step, maybe you can fire off a Calendly link, push for the call, treat it like a Hail Mary. But I think always lead with value. And so giving stuff away, proving social, proving the social proof stuff, sharing resources, providing thought leadership, whether it's SaaS or anything, that's I think where you have to be with this stuff. And I think a lot of people too, getting back to the other questions is like, just mistakes that get made. People will say, hi, first name, we do this, this, this. It's like, it's all about you. It's like, make it about them for the most part. There's nuance to this too. But if you can say this SaaS will help businesses like yours do X or Y, you're ahead of most if you just do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think for the most part, what helps a lot is also highlighting the outcomes, and matching probably the outcomes with whatever the company is doing. Because a lot of people, they just send like these very generic messages, and if you just niche it down a little bit to like your whoever you're targeting, I think it will just start resonating. And if you combine that with timing, I guess, then it makes a lot of sense. So that's why, for example, and I'm here gonna briefly pitch our new feature that we have. Like that's why we recently launched this new feature on Instantly. So by the way, for those who don't know or haven't tried it, we launched a new feature called Job Listing Data. So all you have to do is you just go to our lead finder, and you will find a new filter that basically allows you to um, target companies that are actively hiring for different positions. So let's say that your offer has to do with increasing revenue for companies. So you can use Instantly's new filter to, let's say, target every company hiring for sales directors, and that way that those companies specifically are looking forward to increase their revenue. You can target companies that, let's say, are hiring new HR managers in case you have like a new like a cool HR software, and that someone who is switching into a new position, or a company that is looking to hiring to certain positions, will likely be open to those ideas. So strongly recommend you checking that feature out. And you can combine it with another feature that we launched called Evergreen campaigns, by the way. So if you haven't seen it already, it basically allows you to put like your lead generation on autopilot, but automatically adding leads into your campaigns. So just that short commercial, Ken. Just want to tell people a little bit about like how those features can help there.
Love
But
it.
let's continue with some of the questions. So um, someone is asking, Nasir is asking, how can I improve my offer for my healthcare focused AI automation agency? Oh, that's a very niche agency. Love it, by the way. Like I like how this person has focused their agency. So basically, they would like to see, like how they can generate more leads, how they can reach out to more people, and basically like they're open to ideas or suggestions. So what would be your suggestions for someone who is in a very, very niche industry? Like I will say that maybe going down for maybe trying to find like a database that has very targeted data might be a good idea. Like what are your thoughts there for someone who has like something very niche, and maybe like the general data set might not cut it for them?
Yeah. No, no. Sorry. Did they want to know how to change their offer, or what was the?
Yeah, I mean, the question is a bit broad, but basically is they would like to know like how they can improve their offer for healthcare focused AI automation agency. So basically, I will assume that how they can resonate better with their audience.
Yeah.
Probably like they're targeting like a very niche industry, and it seems like they're having problems with explaining their offer or standing out with their audience. So how can you basically stand out, in very targeted niche industries?
That's a tough to know. I just, I don't know what I don't know, I guess, on that, what their offer is, how they are positioning it. I would say though, if they'd like, they can just book a call with me. I'd be happy to just give a, since we're doing this live, just way to get back to me. I'd be happy to give a free
Makes
consult. So if they'd like to just jump on, grab some time, go to autoup.io, jump on with me. Happy to, kick some ideas around for you. But yeah, hard to know without
yeah
seeing like, okay, knowing all the stuff.
yeah makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. And then the next question from Benjamin: lawyers are the worst. What's your tactic for this notorious difficult niche?
For
They
lawyers?
have he says I've sold to lawyers. Yeah, he said I've sold to lawyers for around 10 years, but I guess Benjamin is still open to ideas and suggestions for dealing with lawyers.
It's well, Benjamin. Good luck to you, man. That's a tough one. Having done it as well, I will tell you though, I would definitely look to relevancy as much as possible. And so, I'm sure you're familiar with Martindale. You can scrape Martindale, and I think niche down somewhat based on state practice. And if you want to, really sell to the big guns, right? You can call out and you can scrape the guys who are AV rated and call that out and say, hey, we help, AV rated attorneys do this, which is, really inside baseball. So the more that you can speak their lingo, the more that they're going to take you, I think, seriously at first blush. I mean, I happen to know some of this. Some of my good buddies are that AV rated lawyers, and so I kind of know, just the inside baseball with it. But it's really hard. I would just recommending on that one in particular, personalizing as much as possible. But really, these guys are busy, and a lot of the successful ones too. They make a lot of money, and so even if you're offering a product or a service or something that can save them money, oftentimes they won't even care. And it's just, and I've tried it, talking to some of my buddies who are really in a different sort of league of most lawyers even, and said, hey, there's this way you can save this for that. And they're like, that's cool, but whatever. Like, so it's hard. But I think going to
Yeah.
Martindale, doing high amounts of segmentation, and then calling out who they are and saying that you help that sort of segment too. Maybe creating some FOMO about like other ones that you've done it with. And, again, I don't know what I don't know, but that's where I would kind of start with all that. It's a tough group for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Alrighty. So I guess that should be about it. Once again, Ken, really appreciate your help. And thank you guys for all of your questions. We'll for sure have Ken another time. So once again, thank you so much, Ken, for sharing all your tips, info, and everything. We'll put the link to your website in the comments later on. And it was a pleasure to having you today.
Cool. Thanks, Felipe. Yeah, always enjoy being on. So let's do it again. But thanks, man.
Yeah.